Every summer, a lake in Oregon vanishes. Millions of gallons don't evaporate. They get swallowed whole by a massive hole at the bottom. Scientists know it drops into an ancient lava tube. What they don't know is where that water goes next. Nobody does. And Lost Lake is just the beginning. Oregon is hiding things, strange, unexplained, borderline impossible things. Let's go find them. These hills look like someone painted them. The bands of red, gold, black, and green are so clean and layered they seem deliberate, but no one drew these lines. They formed over millions of years as ancient soils built up, layer by layer, each color left behind by a different mineral. The red and orange come from iron oxidizing in the surface clay. Black streaks are manganese deposits left in ancient swamp beds. The gold and pale tan layers are volcanic ash, compressed by time into something almost ceramic. Walking here isn't allowed. The surface is so fragile that a single footprint can scar it for decades. A boardwalk winds between the hills instead, keeping visitors close without letting them touch. Beneath the smooth mounds, the fossil record runs back roughly 33 million years. Leaves, mammals, ancient plants, all pressed into the same earth that makes this place so strange to look at. The Painted Hills aren't the tallest or the widest thing in Oregon. They're just the most honest, exactly what they are, written in color, out in the open. Before we head to the next spot, here's a fun question. What is the capital city of Oregon? Comment your answer. 4 miles of dark sand, and on most mornings exactly what they are, written in color, out in the open. The Oregon coast doesn't do warm and shallow. The water here is cold, the waves come in fast, and the sky stays gray for most of the year. People walk anyway. There's something about the scale of this beach that pulls you down to the waterline whether you plan to go or not. By Oregon state law, every inch of the coast is public. No private beach, no restricted access. The whole stretch open to anyone who shows up. When the fog rolls in off the Pacific, the forested headlands to the north disappear first, then the sea stacks, then everything beyond 50 feet. It gets quiet fast. At sunset, when the clouds break just enough, the light hits the wet sand, and the whole beach turns gold for about 15 minutes. A few people usually stop walking to watch. Then the clouds close back up, and the Pacific goes back to doing what it always does. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our interesting videos. The high desert around Smith Rock is flat and open in every direction, and then the ground just drops. Walls of rhyolite and welded volcanic tuff rise up to 800 feet from the canyon floor, carved out over millions of years by the crooked river still running below. From the rim, the river looks like a thin blue line, tracing an S-curve through the scrubland. From the trail at the bottom, the cliffs block out most of the sky. Climbers have been coming here since the 1980s, and Smith Rock is widely credited as the birthplace of American sport climbing. There are over 1,800 established routes on these walls, ranging from beginner cracks to some of the hardest technical faces in the country. At midday, the rock turns gold. At dusk, it goes deep red, and the Cascade Peaks, three sisters, Mount Jefferson, appear framed between the canyon walls like something placed there on purpose. The juniper scrub at the base stays green year-round, which makes the rock look even more bare by comparison. A trail follows the river through the full canyon loop, close enough to the cliff faces that you have to tilt your head back to see the top. Most people come for the climbing, but plenty of others just come to stand at the bottom and look up. We worked really hard to make these videos, and of course, your support is a huge motivation. If you love us, you can scan the QR code here to buy us a cup of coffee. On a calm morning, the mountain appears twice, once above the tree line, once below it, reflected in water so still it takes a moment to find the seam. Trillium Lake sits at 3,600 feet inside the Mount Hood National Forest, about 2 miles south of the summit it mirrors. The lake wasn't always here. In 1960, a small dam turned a marshy meadow into a reservoir, and the reflection that's now one of the most photographed views in Oregon was, before that, just a bog. Mount Hood rises to 11,249 feet above it, a stratovolcano that geologists consider potentially active, though it hasn't erupted significantly since the early 1800s. The snow on the upper slopes never fully disappears, even in August. In summer, kayakers and fishing boats drift across the surface without much urgency. The lake is stocked with rainbow trout, and the pace tends to match the place. Lily pads cluster at the marshy inlet, and the forest comes right down to the water on 3 sides. At golden hour, when the wind drops and the lake goes flat, the reflection sharpens until the mountain and its mirror image look almost interchangeable. The light holds for maybe 20 minutes before the colors shift. Then the blue hour comes in, the trees go dark, and the summit floats above its own reflection like it's been there forever. Most cities push the landscape to the edge. Bend let it stay inside. The Deschutes River runs straight through downtown, dropping over a small rapids before curving south through the Old Mill District, where 3 preserved brick smokestacks mark what used to be one of the largest ponderosa pine lumber mills in the world. Pilot Butte, a cinder cone volcano, rises from the middle of the city at 4,138 feet. You can drive or hike to the top and see the full Cascade Range laid out on the horizon. 3 Sisters, Broken Top, Mount Bachelor. The ponderosa pines didn't disappear when the city grew around them. They're still here, filling the gaps between neighborhoods, lining the streets, standing between rooftops. In winter, snow covers the whole grid at once. The river goes quiet under gray light, and the smokestacks stand out against a purple sky at dusk. In summer, the same river runs fast enough for whitewater and slow enough to float. Bend has been one of Oregon's fastest-growing cities for years, which is visible from the air. New construction pushing out toward the high desert in every direction. The mountains don't move. If you've been here before, comment number 1. If not, comment number 7. The Willamette Valley runs 150 miles from the outskirts of Portland south to Eugene, caught between the Coast Range on one side and the Cascades on the other. From above, it looks like someone laid out a quilt. Green grass seed fields, gold wheat strips, vineyard rows climbing the hillsides, and the Willamette River threading through all of it. The valley floor produces more grass seed than almost anywhere in the United States, which explains the wide, flat fields that dominate the lower elevations. But it's the hillsides that get most of the attention. In 1983, the Willamette Valley became one of the first designated American viticultural areas in the Pacific Northwest, and winemakers have been expanding across its slopes ever since. The grape here is almost always Pinot Noir. It's a notoriously difficult variety, thin-skinned, sensitive to heat and cold, quick to show every mistake made in the vineyard. The cool, wet winters and mild, dry summers give it exactly the slow ripening season it needs, a climate that winemakers compare to Burgundy. The hillsides above Dundee are planted on Jory soil, ancient red volcanic earth that drains well and forces the vines to work for water, which concentrates the flavor in the fruit. In autumn, the whole valley changes color at once. The vines go gold, the oaks turn rust, and the morning fog sits in the low ground until mid-morning before burning off. From the ocean, it appears suddenly, 235 feet of basalt rising straight out of the surf with no slope, no gradual approach. The two smaller formations flanking it are called the Needles, and from certain angles they look like they broke off and simply stayed where they landed. Up close, the surface is dark basalt streaked with guano, patches of lichen on the upper ledges, the whole face worn by a Pacific that hasn't stopped hitting it. At low tide, the base opens up, exposed reef covered in green algae, sea stars, anemones, and hermit crabs, one of the most accessible tide pools on the Oregon coast. The rock is part of the Oregon Islands National Wildlife Refuge, which means no climbing, no collecting, no disturbing what lives here. In spring, tufted puffins return to nest on the upper ledges, far above the people below. From directly above, the waves foam white around the base and pull back, continuous, indifferent. It formed from ancient lava flows and has been standing here longer than the coastline has looked anything like this. At sunset, dozens of people spread across the sand around it, and the rock goes dark against an orange sky. The Pacific keeps arriving. The rock stays. Which region are you curious about? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you there in the next video. Brookings sits at the southern end of the Oregon coast, about 6 miles from the California border, where the Chetco River meets the Pacific at a small working harbor. The coastline here is different from what's to the north. Less sand, more rock, sea stacks scattered continuously in the surf as far as the aerial can see. Just north of town, Samuel H. Boardman State Scenic Corridor runs for 12 miles along cliffs where Sitka spruce grows right to the edge, and natural sea arches frame small coves of teal water below. The color isn't a filter. The water here genuinely runs a different shade, cleaner, and more saturated than much of the Oregon coast. Brookings has a reputation for unusual warmth, a local microclimate driven by offshore wind patterns that push temperatures higher than anywhere else on the coast. A stretch locals call the Banana Belt. In the mornings, fog sits low over the town and the harbor, and the jetty cuts a clean line through it. Surfers paddle out through the rocky lineup in the afternoon, reading a coast that doesn't offer easy waves or easy entry. At low tide, the reefs open up, dark basalt shelves with white water pulling back across them, exposed for an hour before the ocean reclaims them. The river valley behind town runs inland through dense conifer forest, quiet and separate from everything happening at the waterline. At sunset, the wet sand holds the orange sky. You hear it before you see it. A low, constant roar coming through the trees before the forest opens up. Koosah Falls drops roughly 70 feet off a basalt lava shelf, straight into a plunge pool the color of deep teal, carved into the same volcanic rock the water has been hitting for thousands of years. The name comes from the Chinook trade language and means sky, and from directly above, looking straight down into the white foam expanding across dark basalt, the name starts to make sense. The walls around the pool are covered in bright green moss, kept wet year-round by the permanent mist that rises off the surface. In summer, old-growth Douglas firs frame the whole scene from the bank, some of them wide enough that two people can't reach around them. The Mackenzie River carries the water away below, picking up speed fast through the rocky channel before the forest closes back in. In winter, snow settles on the surrounding firs and the canyon goes quiet, except for the falls themselves, which don't slow down. From the top, the water splits slightly as it clears the basalt lip, then reunites mid-fall into a single column before impact. The pool holds it for a moment, then releases it downstream. Koosah Falls sits just upstream, which means most people walk this stretch twice, once going, once coming back, and the falls look different each time. Eugene sits at the southern end of the Willamette Valley, where the valley floor runs out and the hills begin. The Willamette River curving along the city's north edge, Spencer Butte rising behind the rooftops to the south. It's Oregon's second largest city, though from above it reads more like a large town that grew up around a university and never fully stopped being one. The University of Oregon has been here since 1876, and its campus runs right along the river. Hayward Field, Autzen Stadium, Matthew Knight Arena, all visible from the air in the same half-mile stretch. Which is a fact the city hasn't stopped mentioning since. Autzen Stadium holds around 54,000 people, and on game days the whole city reorganizes around it. The Willamette River path runs for miles through parkland along the water, cyclists, runners, and people walking dogs moving in both directions most hours of the day. From the air, the green is striking, the city is threaded with trees, the buttes are forested to their summits, and the hills to the east rise into the Cascades. It rains a lot, which explains the green. It runs a lot, which explains everything else. The content of this video is compiled from various sources. Please leave a comment below if you find any inaccuracies. Ashland sits in the Rogue Valley between the Siskiyou and Cascade Ranges, about 15 miles from the California border. A city of 20,000 that draws 250,000 visitors a year, most of them here for the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, which has been running since 1935 and now operates across multiple stages from February through October. From the air in autumn, the city disappears under red, orange, and gold, maples lining every street, forested ridges going rust behind the rooftops. The downtown is compact, built around brick storefronts and Victorian architecture, with the 1925 Ashland Springs Hotel still anchoring the main intersection. A greenway stretching from downtown up into the hills. The ridgeline is always visible, close enough that in winter it holds snow while the streets below stay clear. In spring, the valley floor greens up fast, the mountains reappear, and the city fills again for festival season. The architecture tells you this place has been taken care of for a long time. The trees confirm it. In fall, there's nowhere in southern Oregon that looks quite like this. The Deschutes runs 252 miles from the Cascades north to the Columbia, and somewhere along the way, it becomes a completely different river. In the upper reach, it moves slowly through ponderosa pine and open meadows, looping in S-curves and oxbow bends. The water is cold year-round, fed by snowmelt and springs. Then the land drops. The pines give way to sagebrush, the canyon walls close in, and the river cuts down through ancient basalt, in places more than 2,000 feet below the surrounding plateau. The Lower Canyon is a designated wild and scenic river. A railroad runs alongside it, often the only sign that the outside world exists. Fly fishermen have worked this stretch for generations. The Deschutes holds native red-side rainbow trout, a strain adapted specifically to this river. The same canyon draws rafters too. The current picks up fast, and the rapids build as the walls tighten. From the air, the contrast is hard to miss. Green meadows and lazy bends up top, red basalt and white water below. The river doesn't announce the transition. One bend it's quiet, the next the canyon starts. By the time it reaches the Columbia, it has moved through pine forest, high desert, river meadow, and canyon. Somewhere in the Oregon Cascades, a shallow lake holds the sky perfectly still. Sparks Lake sits at 5,430 feet in the Deschutes National Forest, cradled between pine forests and the volcanic peaks of the Three Sisters Wilderness. South Sister and Broken Top, two of Oregon's highest summits, rise above the western shore and reflect clean into the water at dusk. The lake is naturally shallow, and as summer stretches on, the water retreats and mudflats emerge along the edges. Those exposed flats and braided channels aren't signs of drought. They're just how Sparks Lake has always worked. From the air, the forest runs right to the waterline, dense and dark, broken only where the lake pushes back. Late in the day, the light goes pink across the peaks before the water goes completely still. The reflection doesn't move. For a few minutes, you can't tell which half is real. By summer, snowfields still cling to the upper ridges of South Sister, while the valley below is already green. That contrast, snow on the peaks, open water below, is what draws photographers here year after year. On the southern Oregon coast, someone built golf the way it was always supposed to look. Bandon Dunes opened in 1999 on a stretch of natural sand dunes above the Pacific. No houses, no cart paths, no development beyond the game itself. The terrain did most of the design work: gorse, dunes, and wind-sculpted ground that no architect could have invented. From the air, the fairways blend into the landscape so completely that you have to look twice to find them. Every course here is walking only. No golf carts, no shortcuts. Just the wind and however many miles you're willing to cover. The Pacific sits right at the edge of several holes, close enough that a bad shot could end in the surf. In the morning, sea fog moves through the pines and across the greens before it burns off. By midday, the dunes are bright and the ocean turns deep blue behind the flags. At sunset, the whole resort goes quiet. The course, the beach, the water all fading into the same soft light. There are now 6 courses on the property, but the feeling hasn't changed since the first one opened. This is what the land was already asking for. "224 feet, and it falls so clean you can hear it before you see it." Latourell Falls drops off a basalt cliff in the Columbia River Gorge, inside Guy W. Talbot State Park, less than half an hour from Portland. The rock face isn't gray. It's covered in yellow-green lichen that turns the entire wall into something between geology and painting. From above, the falls almost disappear, just a white thread cut into a canyon sealed tight by Douglas fir and big leaf maple. Up close, the basalt shows its age. Hexagonal columns stacked by ancient lava flows, slow-cooled into geometry that no one designed. A short trail runs from the road to the base, and when the water is high, the mist reaches you before you're anywhere near it. Hikers stand at the bottom and look straight up. The overhang pulls the water slightly away from the cliff as it falls, leaving a dark cave of air behind the curtain. The creek that forms here runs clear over black rock before disappearing into the trees downstream. In autumn, the maples go gold against the evergreens, and the falls look different, warmer, louder, harder to leave. In spring, everything is wet and green, and the whole gorge smells like rain even when it isn't raining. Oregon's Cascade Range runs the length of the state like a spine, and from the air, you begin to understand the scale of what that means. These aren't old, worn-down mountains. They're volcanic, still restless, built from eruptions that shaped the entire landscape of the Pacific Northwest. The three sisters, north, middle, and south, stand together above 10,000 feet each, their peaks holding snow long after the valleys below have gone green. South Sister is the tallest at 10,358 feet. And on clear days, climbers reach the summit and look out over a cloud layer that swallows everything below the ridgeline. Broken Top rises at 9,175 feet, but erosion has stripped away its outer flanks and left something sharper, a peak that looks like it was broken deliberately. When cloud inversion fills the valleys, these summits become islands, floating above a white sea with nothing visible but other volcanoes. Bachelor sits apart from the others, a nearly perfect cone, symmetrical and solitary, rising out of dense pine forest to 9,068 feet. Below the peaks, cinder cones mark where smaller eruptions punch through the forest floor, leaving craters that still look fresh against the green. The Three Sisters Wilderness protects nearly 287,000 acres of this terrain. No roads inside, no development, just the mountains running on their own schedule. Highways cut through the corridor below, and from the air, the contrast is stark. A thin line of pavement, then wilderness in every direction for as far as the camera can reach. At sunrise, the golden light hits the east faces of the Sisters and Broken Top before it reaches anywhere else. The peaks catch the day first. Most of the Oregon coast is basalt, dark, hard, built to last. Cape Kiwanda is something else entirely. This headland near Pacific City is made of sandstone, and the Pacific has been working on it for millions of years. The result is a golden cliff face, layered and carved, with caves at its base and wind-bent trees holding on at the top. From the air, the scale of it becomes clear. The cape pushes out into the ocean like a fist, with waves breaking white on three sides. Just offshore, Haystack Rock stands alone at 327 feet, a single sea stack that the ocean hasn't finished with yet. The sandstone is soft enough that arches form, collapse, and reform. The cape is always slightly different from the last time you saw it. On the cliff tops, the trees lean permanently inland, shaped by decades of wind coming off the water. The beach that curves away to the north stretches for miles, backed by forest and the low hills of the Coast Range. In clear weather, the light turns the sandstone orange, and the ocean goes flat green all the way to the horizon. In storm weather, the same place becomes something harder to look at and harder to leave. Coos Bay is the largest natural harbor between San Francisco and Puget Sound, and from the air, that scale is the first thing you feel. The estuary spreads wide and flat, fed by the Coos River pushing down from the Coast Range and held in place where the land finally opens to the Pacific. Tugboats move across water so calm it looks like glass, pulling past docks that have been working since the timber industry built this town. The port here once made Coos Bay one of the largest lumber shipping ports on the west coast. That history is still written into the waterfront. Fishing vessels pack the marina in rows, rigged for salmon and Dungeness crab, the two things the bay has always given generously. At low tide, the estuary pulls back and reveals wide mudflats. Shorebirds work the edges while the boats wait for the water to return. The town of North Bend sits just across the bay, close enough that the two communities share a skyline and an airport, and have never fully decided where one ends and the other begins. Out past the breakwater, the Pacific takes over. Dark swells, basalt outcrops, open water running west with nothing to stop it. At sunset, the bay catches the last light before anywhere else on the coast, and the whole surface goes orange for about 10 minutes. Cape Lookout sits on a narrow sand spit in Oregon, wedged between Netart's Bay and the open Pacific. It's one of the most scenic stops along the Three Cape Scenic Route. The main trail runs 5 miles round trip through Sitka spruce and hemlock forest, ending at the tip of the cape. On a clear day, you can see 39 miles south to Cape Foulweather and 42 miles north to Tillamook Head. Two additional trails, the north and south segments of the Oregon Coast Trail, push further through the forest above the ocean, adding nearly 4 more miles of hiking. Miles of uncrowded beach stretch north along the Netart Spit. A wide cobblestone revetment lines the beachfront, built to hold back erosion and protect the campground. Walk carefully, the stones shift underfoot. Dogs are welcome on the beach, on leash near the campground, and free to roam off-leash further north. Near Mackenzie Pass in Oregon's Willamette National Forest, Proxy Falls drops 226 feet off the edge of a hanging valley into a gaping canyon below. That single plunge makes it one of the highest waterfall drops in the entire state. The falls were shaped by glaciers that carved deep canyons through this landscape roughly 6,000 years ago. When the ice retreated, it left behind a valley suspended in midair, and the water has been falling off its edge ever since. Surrounding the base, ancient lava fields spread out from nearby cinder cones close to North Sister, filling the valley floor with dark volcanic rock. The contrast is striking. White cascading water against black lava, forest pressing in from every side. Upper Proxy Falls tumbles off the same glacier-cut cliffs just a short distance away, the two waterfalls sharing the same dramatic origin. What happens to the water at the bottom is the strangest part. It doesn't flow into a stream or collect into a pool. It simply vanishes, absorbed into the porous volcanic subsoil beneath the surface. Oregon is a destination that rewards curiosity, where every road seems to uncover a landscape more breathtaking than the last. Towering waterfalls, rugged coastlines, ancient forests, and volcanic peaks come together to create an unforgettable natural mosaic. There is a quiet authenticity here, where small towns, local traditions, and the outdoors shape the rhythm of everyday life. Instead of demanding attention, Oregon captures it effortlessly through moments of unexpected beauty and peaceful discovery. When you finally head home, you leave with more than photographs. You carry a renewed appreciation for the wild places that still exist in the world.